Good afternoon there. I hope you're having a good Sunday there. It's very rainy here in Somerset. I just thought I'd do a quick video just to keep you updated with some other aspects of the FOIs in respect of the Welsh hospitals back in 2015 and 2016, what was going on. To continue from what I was doing before, I've put it up on the screen here, so you can see I asked them why were no babies sent to Arrow Park despite it being reported in national and Welsh newspapers that that's what was going to happen. That was the agreement. That would be the designated hospital when there were reductions in the level of Glan-Clwyd and Maelor hospitals in Wales. And so their response is, babies were transferred to Arrow Park and Liverpool Women's Hospital during this period. Well, we knew that we had the figures before that up to 5 or less were transferred needing level 3 care to Liverpool Women's Hospital and to Countess of Chester Hospital, but it said 0 to Arrow Park. But it's making the point here that because of how I framed the previous question, I had asked for them how many babies were transferred that would otherwise have been treated at Glan-Clwyd Hospital and Wrexham Maelor Hospital due to the downgrading of both units to a level 2 during this period. And now we know from what incredibly helpfully Michelle Warden told me is that Glan-Clwyd was a level 2 plus and Wrexham was a 2 that had been reduced to a level 1 rather than being a level 3. And it says here, there weren't any babies transferred to Arrow Park Hospital due to the downgrading of Welsh units during this period, but there were babies transferred who would have been transferred even if both units had remained at level 3 during this period. So you see in that paragraph, the Welsh Health Board are still continuing, based on the premise of my question, to continue with this incorrect information that both units had been level 3. I'm not sure why they're doing it. Maybe it's just this in the FOI office or however it works there. They simply don't know or haven't looked it up what was going on in 2015, and they are assuming that the premise of my question was right. And the premise of my question was based on certainly reporting from the period by the BBC and certain other reports. And if you looked it up as a Google AI search, it would say level 3 for both those units. But that's because it's that element of AI is copying the BBC report, so it's just echoing the incorrect information. But thanks again to Michelle Warden, who told us that Glan-Clwyd was a level 2 plus and Wrexham Maelor was a 2, and so the downgrading was... Now here's the thing I'm still not absolutely clear about. So was the downgrading of Glan-Clwyd during this period of time, did it lose its plus? And what does that actually mean? So did it lose all care of level 3 care babies? And if so, where did they go? Well, possibly some of those then went to Countess of Chester Hospital. We know that some did. And we know that some went to Liverpool Women's Hospital. So what I think is interesting about this response is that they're saying, because of how I framed the original question to do with downgrading, they haven't given me the full, or a sense of they haven't given us a full sense of how many babies were transferred from the North Wales area to the North West of England neonatal network during this period. So what I've done now is to reframe the question and not to mention anything to do with downgrading, but to simply give them a span of years. So the span is this: 2009 to 2017. And then I asked them like a 3-part question. How many babies were transferred each year as a full gross figure to the Northwest network as a whole each year? And then the next question breaks it down further. How many were transferred to each of 4 hospitals, those being Alderhay, Liverpool Women's Hospital, Arrow Park and the Countess of Chester Hospital? They're the ones I'm interested in. So one level 2 and 3 level 3s. And then I wanted to know also how many babies requiring each level of care, and I've even included level 1, and it's probably unlikely there were any transferred needing level 1 care, but we just don't know. I just thought I'd do it for the sake of fullness of information. Level 1 to level 3, how many were transferred across these different years, needing different levels of care? So those 3 questions, if they do give me all that data, hopefully that's going to give us a clearer picture, a fuller picture. And what this answer that's on the screen now tells us is that there may well have been more than up to 5 babies transferred from North Wales to the Countess of Chester Hospital. It leaves that open, doesn't it? Because they're already saying that certainly some were sent to Arrow Park, whereas the previous response said that 0 were. But they've kind of finessed it here a bit in the sense they're saying, we only told you it was 0 because you asked about babies being transferred to Arrow Park solely by virtue of the downgrading. Supplementary FOIs I'm still waiting to hear about is, well, when did Gland Clwyd stop treating any babies requiring level 3 care, if indeed they did stop? So this idea of a downgrading, so because Michelle Warden told us that it was a level 2 plus, the plus bit I've inferred can include some level 3 care babies, as it were, some, but not all, and not that requiring certain treatment, and not those requiring any surgical treatment. And so those were the stipulations that Michelle Warden said, by virtue of them not being able to give any surgical treatment, and also this treatment related to premature babies and problems with retina, eyesight problems, ROP treatments. So that wasn't available at Gland Clwyd, and so by virtue of that, they weren't a quote unquote full level 3. They were in this 2 plus range. So the plus bit must mean something. It must, I'm assuming, well, I've inferred that it means that they do look after some babies for long-term intensive care, which is a stipulation of level 3 unit, isn't it? Rather than short-term intensive care. And just to extend a little bit from that, when Michelle Warden has spoken with Chris Morris, I'm only talking about Michelle Warden because it's been so helpful to get me to understand and to correct my false understanding, which was based on, as I say, the reporting and other searches, that these units weren't both level 3s. Talking about Gland Clwyd and the Maylor Hospital. So yeah, I'm trying to get more very specific information from Gland Clwyd in terms of did it in this quote unquote downgrading period. So what was the downgrading period for Gland Clwyd then? What effects were there on Gland Clwyd in 2015 and 2016? I.e. the we're talking about. Usually it's referred to like the spring period for these downgradings, like March, April, depending on the reports you look at. What was the impact on Gland Clwyd in terms of what level of care they were able to offer then? What was the change, and when did it happen? And where did the babies go who would otherwise have gone there? Well, we know from, as it's repeating in this response, from my previous FOI, it's saying that up to 5 babies requiring level care were sent to the Countess of Chester. So that could be 5, it could be 4, 3, 2, we don't know, but it's up to 5. Because of this reiterated question I've now sent them, it's possible that we might find that there are more babies requiring level 3 care sent to the Countess of Chester. But we're obviously waiting to find that out now. If they let us know, and if they will answer this, it's a bit strange now dealing with this health board, because they're kind of, it's almost as though they're making the mistake that I've made, because I based it on the I followed what the BBC was saying and what was on the internet about these units, which said they were both level 3s, and that's what they said, you know. But they seem to be echoing that as though that was the case. So it's almost as though they don't know, or at least the Information Governance Department doesn't know, and maybe that's where the fault is. So that they just didn't look or anything. The other thing I want to find out is, when did the Maylor Hospital actually, when was that brought to a level 1, a SCIBU, a SCBU unit? Exactly when? And where did the level 2 babies go then at that point? Did some of those babies go to the Countess of Chester Hospital? So with this kind of 3-part question that I've now asked them, in which I don't confuse the issue for them by mentioning downgrades at all, just to get the figures overall each year between 2009 and 2017, what was going on in terms of all transfers from North Wales, which is the area covered by the Betsy Cadwallader Health Board, or the whole, we want to know the whole figures for each year, and then to have it broken down into levels of care, and then to have it broken down into the receiving hospital within the Northwest Neonatal Unit, Northwest Neonatal Network. Why am I doing this? What's the point of this? Because I believe what we found out so far that is significant. Well, number one, there's a 20% increase in births by mothers who reside in Wales during the indictment period, the 13-month period, as compared to the previous 2 sets of 13 months. And that's a significant number of births in that case. The 20% is of quite a large figure, so the 20% actually equals 122 extra births in the indictment period, which is all extra pressure, obviously. And among some of those births, there's going to be births with complications, which then go to the neonatal unit, of course. Now, we're not going to be allowed to get the information to directly track all that, probably. But we do know, just as a reminder, we do know that 5 of the babies on the indictment, now whether they include babies that sadly died or babies from which there were crashes and that led to attempted murder convictions, we know that 5 of the babies were from mums and parents that resided in Wales. So that's a significant number. That's almost like it's getting on for a third, isn't it, really? It's getting on for a third of the indictment, actually. So I think I've covered everything I want to today, so I'm carrying on with it, and I'll update if I get anything else. The point of this is to build the picture about what is different, and to support it with data. What is different about 2015 and 2016, or very particularly that indictment period, that 13-month period, to get as much data supporting about how you can measure what the differences were there, Also have some FOIs in, which I tried before, and I think I was knocked back because I tried it a long time ago, and I have lost some of my files. I had a computer crash, and I lost some of my files before, but I've tried it again, which is the question regarding to multiple births that being looked after by the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester during the indictment period, as opposed to previous years. Is there a spike in that? It sounds like there was, but we need data supporting it. So this hopefully will create a set of metrics, or a set of spikes actually, in terms of pressure that you can measure that was added to the Countess of Chester Hospital, both from possibly, and this is where it gets a bit more involved, what's happening to the other level 3 units in the Northwest Neonatal Unit, Neonatal network, because of extra transfers from Wales, filling up capacity at Arrow Park and Liverpool Women's Hospital, whereas before there was more room in that. There was more room in the transfer windows, leading to, therefore, babies being, quote-unquote, sort of stuck at the Countess of Chester longer than they would have been, or being there at all when otherwise they wouldn't have been, making this 13-month period more explainable in terms of a spike in deaths. So it's the internal increase in pressures within the neonatal network in the northwest of England, the Chester and Merseyside, and it's also pressures from outside. So it's both, really. So that's the point of doing this. And I've gone on way too long now, but I'll keep you updated. And I think it's worth doing this to reiterate. We do know already that there were babies needing level 3 care being transferred directly to the Countess of Chester from Wales, which obviously shouldn't be happening. But there's a reason why. So why was that done? Is that you ask one question, it leads to another question, doesn't it? So why were they doing that? Simply because it was nearer, and it is nearer, but it's not a level 3 unit. So were they doing it because there was full capacity at Arrow Park and Liverpool Women's Hospital? And if that is the case, why is that? Is that because of the effect of the Welsh hospitals? And also we have to deal with, as Michelle Warden very helpfully reminded me, that the work that Peter Elston did a long time ago, and I read it at the time as well, is that there were hospital closures as well in North Wales, up to, I think it was either 17 or 19 closures over this period of time. So I'm not actually totally sure what closure means in terms of, like, does it mean no babies were being cared for at these units? I don't think. I'm assuming it means they were closed to new babies, new patients being sent there. Therefore, new patients that come up, as it were, have to then be sent elsewhere. And where are they going to be sent? Presumably to the northwest of England, to this other network out of Wales, from Wales to England. So I've sent an FOI about that in terms of getting more kind of granular detail on when those closures happened, the actual dates of them. So I'm taking at the moment, and I could be wrong, but I'm taking the idea of a closure, meaning it's not that they shut down the shop altogether and there are no babies being looked after in Maylor Hospital or Glenclwyd. It just means there's no room there, as it were, so they're stopping any further patients coming in for a period of time. I'm assuming that's what the case is, but if I'm wrong about that, please help me understand that is the wrong way to look at it. But I'm trying to find that out directly by FOI as well. What does a hospital closure mean? Does it mean closure to new patients or complete and utter closure? If it's complete and utter, then there's going to be a hell of a lot of transfers going on, isn't there? So it's, when did those closures happen? The actual dates of all those closures? Will they give me this information or not? We don't know. The thing is about trying to do these FOIs is if you try to put too many questions on one of them, they just bat it back to you. I've had it where they say, you're asking too much. It's going to cost more than 450 quid to do this. There's some figure in money that they decide, and they say, well, unless you want to pay for it or whatever, then we're not going to just give you this information. So you have to break it down. You have to break it down into sort of units, but then you find you've asked this one question, their answer then makes you think, oh, I should have asked it slightly differently, or it actually prompts further questions from their answer. And here, in this response, we've got some bit of a strange answer. Is kind of saying, well, you asked a question in a certain way, therefore we give you an answer in a certain way, which I kind of understand it, but it did give the impression that no babies were sent to Arrow Park. Well, that's how I read it anyway, and obviously incorrectly read it that way, but because they were basing it wholly on the premise of my question, which was about the downgrading element. So anyway, I'll leave it there and stop repeating myself. So have a great rest of the day, and take care. And if there's anything I'm not understanding that anyone can help me with here, I'm reading the comments as much as I can and responding to them, and but certainly reading them, and thank you very much. And thanks very much again to Michelle Warden, who, without her telling me about the actual original status of those two hospitals, I would still be quote unquote believing the BBC, as it were, and I wouldn't have been put right by the health board here in Wales, who you would think should know, shouldn't they, what level those hospitals were at and what they became thereafter. So anyway, that's just the way it is, I suppose, in terms of, I think they just, these different departments, I don't think they probably go into it that deeply then. Anyway, for whatever reason, they don't seem to know. But thanks so much to Michelle Warden again for helping with that and helping me with that. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.